We all like to think our careers follow a bit of a plan. You build something over time, you get good at it, you find your rhythm, and then life throws a curveball, a change you didn't expect, a new direction that you hadn't planned for. But those moments don't always mean things are going wrong. In fact, they can sometimes be the start of something better. Today's guest has had a career most people would recognise. 25 years as a familiar face on Australian TV before stepping into something completely different. Along the way, he's navigated career change, freelancing, big life events, and come out the other side with a life that's full and busy. So today, we're talking about reinvention and making the most of what comes next. Hello, my name is Stephanie Coombs and I'm here with my co-host, my mate and the money guy, Ryan Watson. Hello.
Hi, Steph. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on with you?
Well, you mentioned, obviously, we are mates, and I've got a mate of mine on the podcast today too, so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, let's bring him today. We're going to be joined by Mike Larkan. He's a former 10 News weatherman and now a wedding celebrant and MC. Mike spent 25 years as a household name delivering the nightly weather, but then Mike's career took a bit of a turn, and that's all been part of the adventure. Mike, welcome to the show.
Well, Steph, this is fantastic. And yes, you look great, Ryan.
Thanks, Mike.
Now, the last time I saw you, you were in a tuxedo, looking at $1 million with a beautiful woman you were about to marry.
That's right, yeah. So just over 6 years ago, for those listening, watching, Mike married myself and my wife just 3 weeks before COVID.
Exactly. Happily married. She's happy you're married. Excellent.
And we're off.
Can you say that?
I would actually like to hear a little bit about this wedding because now, we can't turn off, we're recording. I can get the gossip. Was it a wild one?
Not until the groom walked down the aisle.
Okay.
And that was right at the beginning. That was a fantastic party.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't just a wedding, it was a celebration. And the reception wasn't a reception, it was a wedding party. It was a fantastic night. Everyone was having a drink or two of water. And then the alcohol came out about 10 o'clock and then the adults got drunk.
Is it different when you marry someone that you're friends with and that you know?
I always try and make it look like I know the couple that are getting married. I never look like I turn up and do a job and go. So most guests think that I know the bride or the groom. So there's that part of it. But it's even more fun because I've known Ryan, but also his fiancée, now wife Lisa, I've known for more than 20 years. So it is fantastic. And also a number of the guests I actually knew, which is unusual for a celebrant.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, very much so. And there's a lot of in-jokes that you don't use, but you may use a little innuendo because they're friends and well, work colleagues and things like that as well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
The ceremony did start a little awkwardly because Allegra and Lisa walked up the aisle and Mike proceeded to call Allegra Magoo. And in front of everyone, Magoo goes, "You're not allowed to call me. Ryan's the only one who's allowed to call." And that's not a me rule. So it was kind of Allegra at the age of 8 or something.
Yeah.
And we love Mike. And Allegra just went, "No, we're not. That's not the way this is."
Yeah, so I slapped her. Oh, no, I didn't. Just kidding. Just kidding. I put her in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Put her at Crown Casino. She sat in the car park for the next hour.
Brought her a lemonade occasionally and made sure she was fine.
That's how you start.
Yeah, this is a really great advertisement for you too, Mike. But let's talk. You met Lisa when you were working at Channel 10.
That's right. So I was born and bred in Sydney, the western suburbs. In fact, I was born in Liverpool Hospital, and from an early age, I thought I was the fifth Beatle, because the Beatles were always known as the Liverpool lads, and I thought, I'm from the same place as them, so I'm going to grow up to become a musician. And I sort of wanted to do that. So I started to learn to play the guitar. And at the age of 14, I wasn't good at school, and this is the more serious part of it now. I wasn't good at school, didn't like school, and I started working on short-term and long-term goals in my mind from the age of 14. And playing guitar badly, I thought, I'm going to join a band. So I joined a band, and the other musicians were pretty good. They were older than me, and I played guitar, and I was very, very average. And the band was called Freedom. Anyway, we did actually gain a contract with a lawn bowls club, and it was the Marylands Bowling Club. So effectively, it was older people bowling, and then that night, Friday and or a Saturday night, they'd have a bit of a dance. That's how bad we were. Also, we only knew X amount of songs. So I used to write extra verses. So a 3-minute song would then last 6 minutes or 8 minutes because we didn't know a lot of songs, which made it very funny because you see these older people on the dance floor dancing away and the blokes always, know the words of the songs. And suddenly this verse comes on and they sort of half mime it thing. But that was that. So we had the concert with the bowling club, and we'd alternate with another band. So we'd play on a Friday night, and the next week the Saturday night, etc. But the other band were actually good. And they were a bit older than us. They were school teachers, in fact. And they were from the Blacktown area, which is a couple of suburbs away. And they were called the Cockroaches. And the Cockroaches then became the Wiggles.
Yeah.
I know,
Now, if you want to talk about finance, about 10 years ago, I caught up with Anthony, one of the Wiggles. So we sort of kept in contact for a short while, a number of years ago. And they just signed a contract with a South American company involving franchising the Wiggles for $48 million. And I was a weatherman. So they done okay.
Should have stuck with it. Should have stuck with it. You could have been a Wiggle.
I was never any good. So I was in the band from 14 to 17. And with my short-term, long-term goals, so at 14 to become a guitarist in the band, which I did. 15 was to become a singer with the band, which I did. And I have a very bad voice, so I was no good at that. And 16 was to get into television, which is a bit crazy, what I did.
Yeah.
So at 16, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and that was also to become a radio announcer. Because at night when I was doing my homework, and I wasn't very good at school, remember this, I'd have the radio on, and I'd listen to the music, and I used to have a cassette player. So that's how old I am. That's the 1920s now. No, the late 70s. And I used to not just record the songs and then stop it when the DJ started. I would actually play record when the DJ spoke, because I was doing my homework, listening to these DJs, and I thought, wow, I could do that. They talk about music, they may crack a joke, maybe do an interview, and I used to talk a lot at school. I thought, I can do that. So I rang around the radio stations and asked, how do you become a radio announcer? And a lot of them said, you have to do a radio course or a television course, and sort of brushed me off a little bit. So this is before you could Google. I got into the yellow pages, and there was the Max Rowley School of Radio. So I thought, oh, okay. So I rang the Max Rowley School of Radio, and I knew the name Max Rowley because he was the voiceover man on Channel 7.
Yeah.
As in the voiceover person that says, tonight's program brought to you by, that sort of guy.
That could have been you.
So I thought, well, I was hoping it would be. And it was actually. I did, for Channel 10, I did their voiceovers for a number of years, about, 20 years ago. Anyway, so going back to this, and I spoke to this Max Rowley, and he said, I only take students who are 16 and fully employed. So when I turned 16, I then went for job interviews and got a job at a newspaper, the Sydney Sun, owned by a radio station, Radio 2GB, and I thought, I can get in there some way. It had no connection, as it turned out. So at the age of 16, I went for job interviews, got the job as an office boy, then a copy boy at the Sydney Sun. And that way I was actually in the industry, so I thought, but I was working, so that means I could do the radio television course at night. So I joined the Max Rowley School of Radio, doing Tuesday and Thursday nights. I only did one a week, but I went twice a week to show enthusiasm. And then I gave a presentation at this production the Max Rowley School of Radio was putting on. And there were agents in the audience. And this agent came over to me and she said, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Joy Ruby. And I said, yes. And she said, you haven't got a good voice, but we're looking for extras in TV shows. Would you like to do that? I said, sure. She said, now photos will cost you $90, which back then was a lot of money. That was like 2 weeks' wages. And I was 16, so I gained a small portfolio and then got a job acting. Now, my first acting job at the age of 16, am I diverting too far away from what we're talking about?
No, come on, let's go.
Okay,
yeah.
just making sure.
I'm sitting here, Mike, going, you're not diverting, by the way. I'm sitting, this is very motivated and focused for a 14, 15, 16-year-old. But that's what I'm sitting here listening.
Okay. Well, there were other parts to it too, which I'll come to in a moment. So when you fill out your form, and obviously it's online now, about what you do when you get an agent, you just tick everything. You can do everything. Dancing, yeah. Tennis, yeah. Of course, I can't do anything. Anyway, so my first role was at Channel 7 in the studios at Epping in the western suburbs of Sydney. So it was a disco scene. So they partnered you off and there was a DJ playing music or a band or something. Anyway, so dancing away and you saw where the cameras were and I was trying to get in front of the cameras a little bit, and I was 16 thinking this is good. But there was a girl who was dancing with a guy and she was in front of the camera the whole time. And I thought, how dare her hog that? So she was moving around in front of the camera the whole time. And I'm sort of trying to push in there as well. Anyway, cut. They were happy with it. What they didn't tell the extras, which I was that she was actually playing a blind girl. And they were trying to get some overlay of reaction from other people. So that was my first role, which is a bit awkward.
Yeah.
So I did 13 episodes of that TV show called Glenview High, and it was fantastic. Got to meet a lot of people and things like that. And I then gained a few roles in some TV commercials and things like that. And again, when it comes to lying about what you can do, I said, tennis, as I mentioned a moment ago, I can play tennis. Of course I couldn't. So there was a brand new, and this is the late 70s, a brand new bra, and it was a sports bra. And they wanted to show how supportive this brand new sports
Mike
bra
goes,
was.
I can wear a bra.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm ready. Yeah.
I thought, I can win the booby prize. Anyway, so what they had was two pairs of players playing tennis. And the idea was there was one camera shot and it would zoom into the last player who was wearing the sports bra, and she would run towards the camera effectively to try and hit the ball, and you could see the support. Fantastic. But all four of us lied about playing tennis.
Oh, that is,
So
of course,
it was exactly.
classic.
So it was about a 15-second scene. It took us all day because I was serving and Cart didn't quite hit it across to the other player, and if I got it across the net, she didn't get it to my player on my side, who wouldn't get it to the other person. So my second real role was Triumph Bra. So that was the beginning of that.
I have to say, none of this is like, a very auspicious start to a very long career that you ended up having.
Exactly. So I was
I'm
now...
seeing a lot of flexibility here and ability to, hustle and get work, though.
Oh, very much so.
Can-do attitude.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I was still playing in the band and we were getting nowhere. And I was doing the radio television course at night, and I was doing a little bit of acting and...
Selling bras.
And all that sort of thing, yeah. Tits not so funny. Keeping abreast of the situation. So that was all good and well, but I still wanted to become a radio announcer. And the idea back then, not so much now, was that you'd move into a regional area and you start your career in country New South Wales, because I was based in Sydney. So I was sending out radio tapes, which were cassettes, getting nothing. So I thought, how do I go about this? And there's an expression about knocking on doors. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and knock on doors. So I had a map of New South Wales where all the radio stations were. So I had borrowed my mother's car and I was working at the Sydney Sun. I took 2 weeks holiday and drove around knocking on doors. Wow. So with the map of New South Wales, I went from Sydney to Penrith, Katoomba, Orange, Dubbo, Mudgee, Muswellbrook, Dubbo,
a lot of
Tamworth,
kilometres, yeah.
Everywhere they had a radio station, and I was just staying at a pub at night, and I just turned 18, and I stayed at a hotel, and I'd make the phone call, or I'd turn up the next day to meet the program manager or what have you, and went to Tamworth, Moree, Inverell. And Inverell was about half an inch from the map from Queensland, so I was almost interstate. But the guy at Inverell said, geez, you're keen, I'll give you a chance. So there it is. I got my first radio gig at the age of 18. So I was very, very happy with that. Now, I mentioned before about short-term, long-term goals. One of the years was at 17, newspaper, did that, 18, radio. So I did that. And I thought, I'm going to give myself 10 years to own a Mercedes-Benz, and in my mind that was going to be successful because at the time there was a show, and it was a game show called Sale of the Century with Tony Barber, and the voiceover person used to talk about the car of the century, which was a Mercedes-Benz. So at the age of 18, very impressionable, I thought, that is success. But also, I used to daydream when I was at school about overseas and what have you. So my next thought was, okay, 10 years to own a Mercedes-Benz, then I'm successful. And if I'm not successful, by the time I'm 21, I'm going to circumnavigate the globe. So that was a bit crazy, but I thought I'll go with that. And then I went to Bundaberg in Queensland for 6 months as a radio announcer, not quite getting anywhere. And then I went to 2TM Tamworth, and I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't making money, but I wasn't becoming successful. I wasn't good enough to get back to Sydney or Brisbane or Capital City Radio. So I thought, now's the time to circumnavigate the globe. So I packed my bags, convinced a couple of girls and a bloke in Tamworth to travel with me. I then spent 2 years backpacking around Europe.
Wow.
And I did. I circumnavigated the globe. So I started in London, travelled around Europe, North Africa, and then 6 months in the States and got home. But of course, I had to work. So I had around $5,000 I'd saved. When I was working in radio, Inverell, Bundaberg and Tamworth, I was getting an average wage, and I also became a DJ. So I'd be DJing discos on a Friday and Saturday night for extra money, and that was the money I was saving for my overseas travels if I wasn't successful to get to the big city. I had to work, of course. So I thought there were 3 jobs I wanted to do when I travelled overseas, and one was to work at a pub in London, pick grapes in France,
yep,
and work in a Hollywood movie.
Well, I think I'd choose the Hollywood movie personally if I had between those three.
Well, yeah. So I got to London and did a bit of travelling and what have you. So I got a job at a pub in London, and it was just off Fleet Street. So there were newspaper journos and things like that. And keep in mind, I'd come from Sydney, where I'd spent 2 years working at a newspaper and what have you. So when I started working at the pub, there were people from the Sydney Sun who were over there. So I got to meet a couple of people I'd worked with who were journalists. I was just a copy boy and whatever. So I spent a couple of months, or just over 3 months, working at a pub in London, pouring beer and all that sort of thing, living on site, but making enough money. And so that was all good and well. And I thought, okay, let's go to France and pick grapes. So got on the bus, went through the Channel and what have you, and got to Paris, and then went to country France to pick grapes. But it was the wrong time of the year. I thought, I didn't.
Raisins.
Well, yeah, just about. So I didn't do my homework well, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Greece and pick olives. Same, but different.
Yeah.
So then I got on the magic bus, as it was called, for £25 and went from country France down to Athens. Then I got on a boat over to Crete, and I went to the bottom of Crete, Heraklion down to the bottom of Crete, where they don't speak any English. And that was another thing in my mind. I wanted to go somewhere where no one spoke English to see if I could communicate using sign language. And I made enough money there, hardly, but only just, to go to Israel.
Yeah, all right.
So I'm interested, Steph. How does your to-do list compare to Mike's? Because I've done nothing, and he's done all this by the time he's 25.
I know. It's funny, isn't it? There's so much as well to be said about backup plans.
Yeah.
Because I think that I've heard this from other highly motivated people, right, is that if you have one giant, ridiculous goal on the horizon, that's really good. You can put yourself into it. But, life gets in the way.
Oh, very
right?
much so.
Sometimes you felt like you weren't going to crack it in radio quite the way that you wanted to crack it. Yeah, I had the same thing when I was like, I always wanted to be a radio host, and I was a radio host.
Well,
and
you
I was
are.
like,
Look at you.
Well, this is podcasting.
You've done well. What are you, 25?
But thank you. Yes, I am 25 years old. Where we were, but I got to that point, and I'm like, oh, cool. This job sucks. Like doing breakfast radio out, and I was in Broome, remote Broome.
Oh, okay,
and I was like, this is a...
What, swept you under feet? Yeah, go.
Yeah, terrible... No. Terrible sort of lifestyle that is, because you miss out on so much because you're doing such different hours, right?
Well, but it's a huge sacrifice. So
it is.
Just going back, so when I got a job in radio, I'd gone from a city of millions to a town of 10,000 at the age of 18, not knowing anybody.
Yeah.
And I was doing radio at night at first. And
which is also, that's a hard...
It's very, very hard when you're a young person and all your friends are back in the city and your family, and you're there. I was there just by myself. But I was following that dream, and I had to do it. But also, I had nothing else to fall back on. Yeah. Now, I want to go back to my travels. Now, if it's too boring, just yawn, and then we'll go on to the next part. Because I got to Israel. So I got a job on a kibbutz, which is like a big farm. So I was milking cows, making pizzas for everybody on there, and you make minimal money. But I made a little bit of money and enough to go to Egypt for a month. So that's all good and well, because I wanted to go to Egypt, wanted to climb the pyramids, because I saw somewhere a sign that said you cannot climb the pyramids. It is not permitted to climb the pyramids. And I was 21, maybe 22 then. I thought, I have to do that and climb the pyramids. So I have a photo of me climbing the pyramids next to a sign that says you cannot climb the pyramids.
And then another photo of you being dragged off the pyramids and taken to a...
Just about. There's
There's
another whole story there where I almost got killed, but that's a story at another time. So I was in Israel working on the kibbutz, and there's only one newspaper, or there was back then, that was in English called the Jerusalem Post. So we used to look at the Jerusalem Post, which was, I think, a weekly newspaper. Front page, Hollywood in Israel making a film. I wanted to make a movie. I wanted to work in Hollywood.
What are the chances, Steph?
So what
are the chances?
What are the chances? And not only that, the star of the movie was a girl that I just had fallen in love with. And I was only 22 then, and she was a couple of years younger, and she was an up-and-coming actress called Brooke Shields.
I might have heard of her.
So Brooke was in the movie, and I thought, wow, can I somehow get, say, a job on the movie? I don't know.
Maybe so Brooke and I get married, who knows?
Well, you never know. And just a year prior, the number one song worldwide was a song called Endless Love with Diana Ross and Lionel Richie Jr. from the movie Endless Love that she featured in. And when I was a radio announcer in Tamworth, I used to play the album version of that song so I could look at the cover, which had a photo of her kissing some guy. And I thought, wow, imagine meeting her. So now fast forward about 12 months or 6 months, whatever it was, she was in this film. So I got to do it. So I thought, how do you get onto the movie set? And I was at a kibbutz at a town just outside of Beersheba called Bet Guvrin. And it did say they were in Tel Aviv making this film. I thought, fantastic. So Yellow Pages, the equivalent of over there, there was 3 5-star hotels in Tel Aviv. So I'm figuring they've got to be staying at one of those if they're from Hollywood. And also there was Sir John Gielgud, or is that the actor's name? No, Sir John Mills. He was also in the movie, and he was about to celebrate his 70th birthday. And there was something about that in the story. So I didn't have a lot of money, obviously, so I hitchhiked up to Tel Aviv. I stayed at a youth hostel, and I went to the 3 hotels. It was the Hyatt, the Sofitel, and the Hilton, for example. I can't remember now. And no. But the 3rd hotel I went to, they said, no, they're not staying here, but they're staying now in Jerusalem at the Sheraton or what have you. So I thought, fantastic.
Amazing they told you that.
Well, because I'd been an extra, I had a little union card which had actors and announcers equity. So when I went there, I showed them. I said, look, I'm an Australian actor, which obviously I wasn't. I'm an Australian actor, just looking to get some work, blah, blah, blah. And I was English speaking, and there wasn't a lot of English speaking people that were involved because they were using a lot of Arabs and whatever the background says, whatever. So I went over to the other hotel, caught a bus over there, stayed at a youth hostel in Jerusalem, met the accountant, and he was the only person at the hotel at the time. And he said, yes, they are filming, and yes, they're always looking for extras, and they're out in the Negev Desert. I said, how do you get to the Negev Desert? He goes, it's 2 buses and blah, blah, blah. So I was staying at a youth hostel the next day, went over to the Negev Desert, met the security guard who wouldn't let me go into the set and what have you, but I had the name of the casting agent from the accountant. So I got to the security guard, and I said, I'm here, I got an appointment with, blah, blah, blah. She came out, she goes, I know nothing about what you're talking about. However, we are relocating to Eilat in 6 weeks' time. We will be looking for extras down there. If you turn up on a Sunday, the blah, 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 I'm sure we can find some work for you. So I had 6 weeks. So then I went to Egypt for 5 or just over 4.5 weeks or whatever. Went down to Eilat, which is just on the Red Sea. Went to the set, had an appointment to see the woman, got on the set, met Brooke, and I worked on the Hollywood movie for 6 weeks.
What was the movie?
It was a movie called Sahara. And it was about a race across the Sahara Desert, starring Brooke Shields. And it was produced by a couple of Malcolm Golan and somebody else. I can't think who they passed away not that long ago.
Yeah.
The movie was atrocious. It was a terrible movie. But I got to work on it for 6 weeks as an extra, and also I was the stand-in for the male lead. And what that meant was when they got the cameras ready for the scene, they'd have somebody who would actually be in the position for lighting and whatever.
Make sure the focus is right.
Exactly. And once that was done, they'd actually get the star in. So I actually had a beard and long hair, as did the male actor. His name was Lambert Wilson from Paris.
Yeah.
So I was his stand-in for that 6-week period. So I got to meet Brooke and that, which was fantastic. Got to meet Brooke's mother, Terry, and her partner, all that. Had the best time ever. But also, her costume designer, who was from Beverly Hills, was there, and I befriended her. And she said, if you ever come to Beverly Hills, look me up and, stay with me, we'll catch up, what have you. So about 12, 18 months later, I went to America, went to Beverly Hills, and I stayed with her. And I got a photo with the costume designer in her swimming pool. And I was a Westie from Sydney, lying back in a
Beverly
pool
Hills.
in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, it happened.
So,
there is so much to be said about, because it's 2 things. It's knowing what you want. I mean, I feel like you should be writing one of those books about manifestation. Have you ever thought about that? Like there's a whole scene of woo-woo millennial girls who would love this. This.
What's a woo-woo millennium girl?
Millennial, as in like a millennial.
No, but a woo-woo.
Woo-woo. You've heard the term woo-woo. It's like crystals and like, exactly. It's like, if you manifest it
I get the manifesting.
Yeah. Because this is actually like a textbook version of it where you have all these things that you've just brought into your head and then they somehow become reality.
Well, I was going tick, tick, tick. Mike hasn't missed anything yet.
Mike
hasn't missed anything he wanted to do.
But there's a couple of elements on it. The first is having the thought and then seeing it as possible. And the next thing is jumping on the opportunity in a way that's pretty extreme, actually.
But that's what life's about, because you don't want to have too many regrets. I mean, I'd rather be knocked back and have given something a go. So I just kept travelling. So after Israel, I went back to Greece and Morocco and Tunisia, all that sort of stuff. Fantastic. So I was there in the Europe, North Africa for about 18 months, and then I went to the States for 6 months and then came home, and I was 24, no money, no job. So again, knocked on doors. So I went through country New South Wales and I went to Canberra, and there was a friend of mine from the Max Rowley School of Radio who was now working in radio in Canberra, and they were looking for a midnight to dawn announcer. So, of course, I put my hand up, and that's how I started my career there. Then I moved into journalism. Then I got a job at the TV station there, and I turned 28, and I bought myself a second-hand Mercedes.
Oh, so you managed to get that done as well.
Exactly, but it wasn't a good one, as
No.
my friends called it, the Mercedes Lemon, and it cost me a fortune, but I got it.
Yeah, that's it. Isn't it funny as well when you're in your 20s what you think is a marker of success?
Oh, very, very
It's
much
like
so, yeah.
it's so funny because it's, you know, a Mercedes is it's
Yeah.
it's a lovely looking car and they're lovely cars, but there are so many other things that you would now call a marker of success that would not be a
very
Mercedes,
much
I'm
so,
guessing.
but it was still the 10-year thing from the age of 18, and I turned 28, I got it, and I felt I was successful. And I wasn't, but I felt I was.
So-
because
so-
that was what you said.
Is this always been you, Mike? This focused and driven, or is this?
No,
this
always.
This is.
I think it was also growing up in the western suburbs of Sydney. We had no money. I was sharing my bedroom with my sister to the age of 14. And as I said, I left school at 16 with a job to go to before I left. In fact, I had to ring school to say that I've already left. And my parents weren't well off. Dad was a salesman who hated his job. And that's another thing I'll go back to in a moment. He hated his job and he would leave every 12 months, every 18 months to get another job, which back then was very unusual. Just looking for the next sales job, hated it. Mum worked in a fruit and veggie shop, she hated it. And I remember from a very early age that they were always looking forward to retiring. And from a very early age, I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to look forward to going to work. I wanted to have a dream and turn that dream into a goal and succeed. And from a very early age, that was the direction I wanted to head. And right until my parents retired, always they were talking about retiring, and I didn't want to be like that. And financially, I can't retire. There's no question about that. But I don't want to retire. And I found that people my age who have done well and start retiring from work are retiring from life, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah. You obviously found probably all this bouncing around and chasing dreams. You found something that you really enjoyed when you were on TV doing weather. Like, was that suddenly you were like, oh, I've got it. This is it.
I think so. I found it easy. And that's one of the secrets to make something look natural.
Yes.
And you're not putting any effort into it. But what it was also, there was a guy called Brian Bury who was a real TV personality as the weatherman in the morning shows. And in the evening, always the weather presenters were quite serious, talking about upper level disturbances and stratocumulus clouds and about credibility. And my point of difference was when I started doing the weather in Canberra at Channel 7 and Channel 10 was to be outside like the morning guys were, crack a few jokes, bit of a personality or what have you, and rather than talk about the upper level disturbances, talk about whether you wear a T-shirt, short sleeve shirt, or take an umbrella. And that was really my point of difference. And it was just easy because I was talking one-on-one to people at home, but also I'd done some radio by that stage. And it was the same thing. You sort of talk to a person rather than a group of people. And I think that's the secret to communicating on a personal level.
Well, that created the connection, right, Mike?
Yeah.
That created the connection.
Yeah, and I mean that's classic radio as well, that you've got to picture the person too. So all these different parts of your career kind of fell into place with this
the thing
job.
was also in news and also with the weather. In fact, when I moved to Melbourne, actually, while I think about it, which was in 1996, the other weather presenters, Rob Gill, David Brown, Edward Marr, and the other networks, were in studio, and it's all about credibility. I was outside communicating with people and whatever. So I had no credibility, so I was incredible. No, I'm not sure. But I was having fun with it, but it worked with the audience. And so much so that the segment I was doing, the weather segment, started rating very, very well. So I'd, in summer, be at a beach. In winter, I'd be in front of a fireplace. But I'd be somewhere where the average person might be. But also I might go to an opening night and I might interview the stars of the show. But people at home would enjoy that. And in fact, so much so that the news directors at 7 and 9 started trying to push their weather people out on location and sort of be man of the people or whatever. But the others didn't. They didn't like it. The other thing was that because I had been on radio, I was comfortable ad-libbing. I was comfortable talking. And also with the weather, I could remember stuff about the weather that I had to talk about. So the others had autocue. So they had the writing on the screen, if you like. So if you go on location, it's actually reasonably hard to do that. I was on location, very comfortable, ad-libbing or what have you, and rather than have something in the background, I'd want to be there and bring that forward. And people at home understood that. And rarely did things go wrong, but I was able to make light if something sort of went funny. On a
and
Monday,
that's live TV, though. Like, that's the joy of live TV, is
so
that it's
Mondays,
always can go one way or the other.
I used to go to schools every Mondays, and I'd get kids on. So there could be things there. Every Friday, I used to show a dog from the Lost Dogs Home. Now, I came up with an idea to save dogs from being put put down, if you like.
Yeah.
So on a Friday, I came up with this phrase, it's Friday, it's 5:30, time to give a dog a home, meet such and such a dog. And it was hugely successful and saved hundreds and hundreds of dogs being put down.
Yeah.
I have a dog called Sandwich. He's half bred. No, just kidding there. So throw that in.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling.
But it's interesting with Mike because you're like,
I'm immediately bracing. Yeah. Well, so you had this like really long run on television, and media being what it is. Eventually, that
Gone.
job. Yeah, I mean, it's
COVID. Everything changed.
Isn't it funny? Because like I think that for many years. The person who was doing the weather was actually the warm face of the news. That was the person where you had a bit of personality, where there was a bit of connection with the audience. Doesn't really happen so much anymore. That as a institution, it's all in studio again now. I think
it's cheaper. That's why
it is. Yeah, because you don't have to have a
live
outside
high
broadcast.
truck and a cameraman or whatever.
So media being the same thing that it is now. You're not on TV. You've now found yet another career strain.
Well, yeah.
How are you finding it? Like you're doing weddings and life celebrations.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how that works. So when you work in radio and television, you often get an opportunity to host events. Some presenters like it. Some presenters don't like it. Some are good at it. Some are bad at it.
Yeah.
I'm a reasonably good presenter, and I've presented conferences, seminars, award nights, and emceed weddings. And about 15 years ago, I emceed a big wedding at Crown Casino, Melbourne. It was a big Croatian wedding. There's about 380 guests.
They know how to party.
And do they? Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah. And so during the night, I had two couples approach me and said, we know you from the telly as the weatherman. Didn't know you emceed weddings. Can you MC ours? These are two separate couples. And I thought, yeah, no problems. And then I thought to myself, I haven't actually been to a wedding ceremony for many years. I might go to a couple of weddings just to do a bit of homework. So I went to a couple of weddings, just standing in the back, and I was watching the celebrants, amongst other things, but I was watching the celebrants, and I thought they were pretty ordinary. I thought a lot of them was a lot of old blokes in grey suits, a lot of ladies with short pink hair, and I thought there may be a little bit of a gap there because I found that they weren't as personable as they could be, couldn't hear them as well. They didn't have a lot of technique, if you like, so I looked into it. And there was a guy called Greg Evans who was a TV host of a game show called Perfect Match. And
yes.
I'm also an Australia Day ambassador.
Yeah.
So I went to the Australia Day event and saw Greg there. And I said, now, you're a celebrant. He goes, yeah. And he said, it's fantastic. He said, have you seen what's out there? And I said, what does that mean? He said, there's a lot of competition. There's like 10,000 celebrants, but they're all much of a muchness. And because his TV show was called Perfect Match, he'd marry a couple and his catchphrase, so-and-so and so-and-so, it's a perfect match. Fabulous. So a lot of work and what have you. And he said, when you do a course, you want to look at the International College of Celebrancy. It's the best in the world. I said, I will, but where is it? He said, it happens to be based in Melbourne. I said, fantastic. So I enrolled in the International College of Celebrancy about 13, 14 years ago. It was a certificate 4. You had up to about 2 years to do it. And I thought, I'm not going to wait 2 years. So I started doing weekend workshops. So I'd go to Reservoir, I'd go to Rowville, I'd go to Geelong, I'd go to Frankston on weekends just to get over and done with. Within about 3 months, gained my certificate, applied with the Attorney General's office, and eventually became a fully qualified celebrant. So fantastic. I had no weddings coming up, but I thought, okay, I'm going to become a wedding celebrant. I went to an event and it was a Melbourne Cup luncheon with a couple of other media people, and on the table was Mick Malloy, the comedian. So Mick was doing breakfast radio at the time on Triple M with Eddie Maguire. And we're just talking about what we're doing, whatever. And Mick said, so what are you doing? What's coming up? And I said, well, actually, I'm becoming a wedding celebrant. He said, oh, fantastic. Oh, no, I've become, yeah. And he said, when's your first wedding? I said, well, I don't have one. He goes, well, don't do it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we'll do it on the radio. I said, how's that going to work?
What an ad.
Exactly. I said,
great.
And he said, we'll have a competition and the winners you'll marry. It'll be Mick Malloy's shotgun wedding.
This is all him off the cuff.
Mike Larkan.
He's just gone into...
That is such a good... That's such a good idea, though,
So I thought, fantastic. So, and Eddie Maguire was the celebrity MC, and one of their regular guests at the time on the Triple M Breakfast Show was Darren Hinch. And Darren Hinch had just gone through about his 5th marriage, and he was my first boss, by the way, when I was 16 at the newspaper. So I knew Darren as well. And we asked him if he'd be the ring bearer. And we came up with a bit of a line. He said, fantastic. And because he had just gone through his 5th wedding, he said, never leave home without a wedding ring, something like that. And it was fantastic. Yeah. So we had this a lot of media coverage in the Herald Sun, the Triple M website, which had just started and whatever. So this is about 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
So my first
Beautiful.
wedding was on Triple M with Mick Malloy. So I got a lot of publicity out of it, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of wedding inquiries. And I thought, if I officiate a wedding, I don't know, once a month, bit of extra money, bit of fun, that'll be great. But I actually enjoyed it more than I thought, because you're meeting happy couples because they're getting married.
They're in a good space.
Exactly.
Yep.
They're happy because they're not married yet. I'm a journo, so I got to write the wedding, and I'm a presenter. I can present the wedding and make it better than what I've seen before. So that was my goal, to do the best wedding ever. So once a month, once every 3 weeks. And before long, it was every fortnight. Then every Saturday, I was officiating a wedding, knocking back weddings on a Friday and a Sunday. And I thought, you know what? If ever my TV career finishes, I'm going to become a full-time wedding celebrant, because I'm really enjoying it. And at times, I was staying to be the MC. So when COVID happened and curfew and nobody was watching the news, etc., it was a great time to become a wedding celebrant. So now I've officiated over 1,200 weddings.
Wow, that's
and
a
I
lot.
officiate anywhere between 120, 150 weddings a year. And I MC about, 40 or 50 weddings a year. And it's, what are we now? May in 2026.
Yeah.
I'm taking bookings for 2028.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, what I get from this as well is that in a lot of ways, though it doesn't look like that on the surface, being a wedding celebrant and doing the weather on TV, similar gig in some
Yeah,
ways,
very
because
much so.
you're getting people involved. You've got to be personable. You're presenting to a crowd. You've got to be aware of your surroundings. It's actually training in both ways.
Oh, very much so. And also microphone techniques.
Yeah.
And knowing what works, what doesn't work. And as I was
Reading the crowd
Oh,
too.
very
Like
much so.
you have to be able to read the room.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, well, okay, in the past few days, I officiated a wedding on Thursday, which was a very upmarket wedding. On Friday, same-sex wedding. Saturday was a Italian and a Greek. And then on Sunday was a wedding at a restaurant.
Yeah.
So all very, very, very different size audience, crowd, ethnicity. So you've got to get them in the palm of your hand as you start, because it's about the couple getting married, not about me, but I've got to make sure it's better than any other wedding they've been to.
Yeah.
The guests, the couple, it's not unusual that after a wedding, there will be guests that contact me. We're at so-and-so's wedding. When are you available?
Can you do it again? Yeah. What makes a good wedding?
It always looks like I know the couple that are getting married. It never looks like I've just turned up to do a job and go. That's really important. And also, rather than guests sitting back watching a wedding, I get them involved. And for that reason, I'm always told that a 30-minute wedding I officiate feels like 10 minutes, because it's fun, it's funny, it's romantic, uplifting, never boring, never a situation where guests sit there going, oh my God, I just want to go and get a drink.
That's
well,
usually me.
I tell you what, ask Ryan. I mean,
I
don't
remember
know.
because you said the 10. You said to us when we met you, obviously before the wedding, right? You said specifically that half an hour, but it'll feel like 10 minutes, and it probably went like it was about 5.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah. Nice sort of like fast and friendly and
family focused. There was a
Yeah.
few laughs from the audience,
Yeah.
which is good. And even reflecting on today's conversation, Steph, not to say this to embarrass you, Mike, I'm not sure we've had a guest on our podcast that embodies my good life more
yeah.
in terms of goals, challenge, energy, and
Yeah.
genuinely about the journey. Epitomizes it.
Yeah,
Why not? Now,
absolutely.
I'm really interested to what's next on your list, Mike? Because it doesn't. It sounds like there's a list and there's a next challenge.
Well, there was. I mean, you keep climbing and climbing, and as you get older, though, with mortgage, etc., you hit a plateau. So I've sort of plateaued out a little bit.
Yeah.
It becomes more family orientated as you have your children get a bit older. So my kids are now 24 and 22, and thankfully they're still at home. They're both at university, both doing very, very well, part-time jobs. So my wife and I, the 2 kids, so the 4 of us, very close, and that's a lot of fun. So that's all good and well. Now, I became ill last year, and there was one more thing that I always wanted to do travel-wise, and that was to do a African safari. So I did that a couple of months ago. So that was, again, on the bucket list.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with most things at the moment and not ready to retire. Travel is a lot of fun, so generally 1 or 2 holidays a year.
Another Mercedes to show that you've made it a second time? Is that
Well, I've had...
I thought it might be a Lamborghini.
exactly.
Ferrari.
The cars get better. Is it?
Well, funny enough, my most recent Mercedes I actually gave to my son about 3 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
right. Okay, so there we go. The
So there you
Mercedes
go.
is still a...
It's still there, yeah.
Well, look, Mike, I really appreciate your time. I think that exactly what Ryan said, what you have shown us is that like goals are important and just following your instinct and just rolling with the punches.
Well,
right?
rolling with big punches sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, I alluded a moment ago to not feeling very well last year. I wasn't well. In February last year, I was shaving and I found a lump in my neck. And I thought, I better go and see a doctor about that.
Yeah.
And being a bloke, I waited about a week or two. And being a bloke also, I don't have a doctor. So I had to Google closest doctor to home. So I went and saw a doctor. And she said, look, I'm not sure. I'll get you onto an ear, nose and throat specialist. I thought, okay. So I made an appointment with the ear, nose and throat specialist. And over the phone, he said, you may want to get a scan and get that done before we have our meeting. I said, sure. So I had a scan. And keeping in mind, I'd never had a scan before. Now, for the following 6 months, I had CT scans, MRIs, PET scans, ultrasounds and something else because I was found to have cancer.
Ugh, yeah.
So that lump was cancer.
Yeah.
So initially I had my tonsils removed, hoping that's where it was. The tonsils were removed and a further scan, a CT scan, found there was actually cancer at the base of my tongue, at the back of my throat. And that was the beginning of going to hell and back.
I bet.
So last year was pretty average for that reason. Now, I was then put onto another oncologist and he said, we're going to go hard and fast and to get rid of it. I said, what does that mean? He said, chemo and radiotherapy. I thought, okay. Now, a friend of mine with breast cancer had radiotherapy. And I remember she had 5 bouts of radiation. She said, it really affects you and what have you. I said, okay. So with the doctor, he said, we're going to go hard and fast. 36 bouts of radiation.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, oh my God. And he said, it'll be 6 days a week for the next 6 weeks. We'll give you Sunday off to recover, and then you start again Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And on Tuesdays, we'll give you chemotherapy. And he said, it won't be fun. We hope to get rid of it all. If not, we'll then worry about it. So I said, when do I start? And he said, well, we can start in a couple of weeks' time. He said, we'll start on a Friday. I said, okay. So I rang my mother. My parents had retired up to northern New South Wales. And I rang Mum. And I said, Mum, I said, got some sort of bad news. And she said, what is it? I said, I've been diagnosed with cancer. She goes, oh, my God. She said, I was just about to call you. I said, why is that? She said, your father just died. I thought, jeez.
Oh, my God.
Some phone call.
Oh, wow.
So, wow, okay. She said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. And it had, he rolled out of bed and died, simple as that, at the age of 89. And I thought, oh, okay. Anyway, so I had an appointment for to have my tonsils removed, the first part actually, 2 weeks later, which was on a Friday when they did that operation. And the funeral was going to be on the Friday. So I rang my doctor. I said, well, can I postpone it a couple of weeks because of blah, blah, blah? And he said, yeah, of course you have to go to your father's funeral. So I did that. So I went there and that was pretty hard. So I went to the funeral knowing that I had cancer, but I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Just because nothing had happened at that stage. So then I came back and I sort of kept it to myself as much as I could. And then the first part, and I'm not sure if you know much about radiation and what have you, but I had to have radiation on my neck because that's where the cancer was, within the throat. And I had to get a mask made. And the mask is frightening.
I've seen these.
You've seen them.
Yeah,
So they
claustrophobic.
Very much so. So it's a little bit like something out of Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
Hannibal Lecter. So you get a mask fitted to your nose and your chin and your forehead, and you actually are on a bed and you push into a machine. And the reason the mask is on so you don't move. And they actually put the mask on your face and they clip it on to a little bit under your shoulder so you don't move. And it just zzz across your neck. And then you go the next day, zzz across your neck. And if you have a close look, and not that you can on a podcast, but you can see where I shave across my face. But if you have a look at my neck, there's no hair follicles.
Yeah,
It
right,
burnt the
yeah.
crap out of my neck.
Yeah.
Anyway, couldn't eat because of my throat. So I actually had a tube. So I had to feed myself through a tube on my stomach. The nourishment wasn't there. I was then hospitalised 3 times. On one occasion, I got staph, very unwell on drips and all sorts of things. So for a number of months, I wasn't well. However, I would sometimes have chemo and have the radiation and then still do a wedding on the Saturday, feeling as sick as a dog, but getting through it. I usually have the month of July off to go overseas and on holidays, and that's in the winter when there's no weddings. So I sort of worked it, luckily, I didn't work it. It happened luckily that when I was really unwell was after the treatment in recovery, and that was mostly July into August. So I only missed a couple of weddings, funny enough, and I was able to pass them on to others.
Yeah.
And then started recuperating last year. I lost 15 kilos, then I lost a further 3 kilos,
Yeah.
so there was a bit of concern. But the positive out of it was I lost weight.
A hell of a way to do it. Have you tried Ozempic?
I've heard about that.
Yeah, I
but,
think that's probably the easy
anyway,
way
so
to go.
that's the best
Is there any other sort of like, is there a positive thing that you can take out of this, a lesson that you learned from it?
Yeah, because you got to fight.
Yeah.
But there's always positives, but you got to fight it because you can't let it beat you. Simple as that.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because you are so healthy as
Well,
it sits here. You're so I would not imagine that you'd gone through that 12 months ago.
And look, I don't really talk about it. But the funny
Yeah.
thing is, as you talk about that, up until I was diagnosed with cancer, I'd never had a sleeping tablet, never had an aspirin, nothing. For the next 12 months, I had been on so much medication.
Don't even know what it is,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and so when you get cancer, for the next 5 years, you're seen by the specialist to make sure it hasn't come back and get the all clear and whatever. So I still see doctors or specialists pretty much every couple of weeks. But that's the negative that you don't even talk about because everyone's got something, So just don't worry. So just move on. And as I said, booking weddings for the next 2 years and loving it. And you know what? When I officiate a wedding, no one knows. And when I officiate a wedding, often older people say, "Oh, I missed the news on Friday. What sort of dog did you have?"
Oh,
I
that's
have a
so
little
funny.
Chihuahua.
Yeah.
The point of that is, a lot of people think I still do the news. They just don't watch it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you feel like you're a little bit more prepared to deal with life's challenges after listening to this, maybe you should be. Take a page out of Mike's book and feel positive and have some good goals to work towards. Do make sure that you follow Money and a Good Life wherever you're listening now so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next time. Advice given in this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to influence decisions about investing or financial products. Our listeners should always seek their own professional advice that considers their own personal circumstances before making any financial decisions.